Africa's young voices with us. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Nearly 138 million children were engaged in child labor in 2024, including around 54 million in hazardous work likely to jeopardize their health, safety, or development, according to new estimates released by the International Labour Organization, or the ILO, and UNICEF. The latest data shows a total reduction of over 20 million children since 2020, reversing an alarming spike between 2016 and 2020. Despite this positive trend, the world has missed its target of eliminating child labor by 2025. The report, titled Child Labor, Global Estimates 2024 Trends and the Road Forward, released one day ahead of the World Day Against Child Labor and on International Day of Play, underscores a stark reality that millions of children are still being denied their right to learn, play, and simply be children. To discuss this, we are joined on the line by Nankali Maksud, who is Regional Advisor for Child Protection at UNICEF, Eastern and Southern Africa. Nankali, thank you for joining us and welcome to Rise and Shine.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you.
Our pleasure. What is the actual definition of child labor? Let's start there. And until what age can an individual be classified as falling under it?
So child labor is any form of work. We have domestic work. We've got work that children are doing in farms. In fact, that's the majority. And being children, that goes all the way to 18 years of age.
All right. So those are some of the examples and types that you've given us. Farm workers and domestic work.
Yes, these are some of the examples. But of course, there are some which are even more, hazardous. We have children who are working in mines. So there's a whole range that's classified as child labor for children. And it goes all the way through to 18. We don't want children to be working. We want them to be in schools.
Children stationed at traffic lights begging for money or asking for money, as well as some children that you see at shopping malls asking for raffle ticket money, can that be seen as a part of child labor as examples?
Indeed, that's also a form of child labor. The reason why we're seeing children, whether it's in the field, whether it's in streets, whether it's in shopping malls, is coming back to the issue that poverty is hitting a lot of the families where children live, and they're looking for ways to be able to survive either out of their own agency or driven by parents in their households. Yeah. And that's something that we really need to get to the bottom of.
Yeah. What are some of the main reasons that children end up engaging in child labor?
So, as I said, the first one, of course, for us is poverty. The levels of poverty just remain to be really, really high. And while for us who are living in many of the cities, we're seeing children on the streets, we're seeing them in malls, the majority of children who are affected by this are actually in rural areas and coming from poor households. So this is the where you face the highest prevalence rate. But indeed, in Africa, and of course, as a global world today, we're seeing this taking place in all type of settings. Children are working and are not in school as they should be.
As you say, it's in all types of settings. Is there a specific gender that the report has found is higher when it comes to child labor? Are there specific children from certain countries that are higher rating?
So, first of all, I wouldn't say it's children in certain countries, but for us coming from this African continent, sub-Saharan Africa continues to have the highest number of children who are working. If you look at the prevalence rate over the last, let's say 5 or so years, the prevalence rate has gone down. But our issue is that we have a huge population and children continue to be born. And so because of the numbers, that's why we continue to have very high numbers within sub-Saharan Africa, where, we're estimated at 87 million. And this child labor is not only, happening perhaps, most of the time people think older children. We're also seeing younger children between the ages of 5 to 11 who are also affected. In terms of the gender issue, I'm really glad that you've raised that. Indeed, we used to feel that girls are more affected because we see them, especially in domestic labor or in care within their households. But we realized from this report that both boys and girls are affected. boys more so in paid labor and girls more so in the home. They're the ones who are providing the care. They're the ones who are, kind of taking care of the elderly. They're the ones who are doing the domestic chores. So it has a gendered angle to it in terms of the type of work, but both boys and girls are affected by child labor.
So what are the implications for a child in terms of their well-being who is engaged in child labor?
So for children, and it's not only of course it starts with a child's life. What we see about children, what we know about the development that children to be able to grow up as productive citizens is that they need to be able to go to school, they need to be able to play. So there's something that we're robbing children out of their lives just being a child on a day-to-day. But in addition to that, if a child doesn't go to school, it also means that they grow up into an adult who perhaps will not have the job opportunities that we would expect them to be able to have. And so it puts that family in a cycle of poverty. They will not be able to rise above that because the child has not been able to go to school. They will not be able to have certain employment opportunities as they grow up. So it's a whole cycle for them when they're a child and when they grow up into being an adult. And the repercussions are not just for that particular child, but for communities and countries at large.
So what are the sectors that are notorious for employing child laborers? You mentioned agriculture, you mentioned domestic work. Is that all? I think we've seen, when we look in the media also in terms of imaging, but not from Africa, from Asian countries where it's manufacturing as well. How prevalent is manufacturing on our side of the world?
So we don't have as much children in manufacturing for Africa, but what we have is a lot of children in mining and in construction as well. Agriculture remains the first one. 70% of child laborers are working in agriculture and mainly in family farms. That's where you're seeing most of the children who are working today. That's followed by domestic work. And then for us as a continent, it's in mining and in construction as well. And so that's something that we need to be able to look out for with those industries as we engage in them. Indeed, there's a farming issue, but there's a big issue around kind of the mining industry and the construction industry that we need to engage and address. And this all starts with addressing that poverty at household level.
Yeah, and as we say, latest data shows a reduction of over 20 million children since 2020. There is a reverse in a previous spike there. So some progress has been made in tackling this issue. But what does legislation provide for when it comes to this issue? If as a parent, I'm suspecting that a child is being forced into labor, what can I do? Where do I go?
So,
Even as a parent, just as an adult.
Yeah. Just as an adult, for me, I think first things first is that we shouldn't assume the worst about families who make choices for their children to go to work. The issue that they're trying to address is poverty. So the first thing that all of us need to be able to address is what's going on in that family. How can we ensure that we have programs which are able to address poverty at household level? How can we ensure that we have schools that are free, that are quality, that are near these children so they can be able to go to school? If you ensure that we have those options, families will not make a choice. I'm a mother. I don't know if you're a mother, but I would not choose for my daughter to be walking around on the street if I had that option of ensuring that we have the right income level in our household and that I can be able to take my child to the right school. And I feel that it's going to lead to something in her life. And for me as a mom, that I have an opportunity for a job. If I don't have that, then I start to look for coping mechanisms. How will I survive? How will I feed my children? And that's what leads families down this track. And so if we start to think about it in that way and give families those options, child labor will be taken away from our communities.
And we need to do that. So let's continue with that trajectory that's positive so that there is that positive trend. And we get to, I guess we've missed the target of 2025, but we get to there as quickly as we possibly can. Thank you so much for your time, Nankali. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great. Nankali Maksud is Regional Advisor for Child Protection at UNICEF, Eastern and Southern Africa.